この戦争を
Subscribe to Keck Filet.
俺はルフィ、海賊王になる男だ。
It's a great day here at Keck Filet's YouTube channel. I am the Keck Filet, and today we're doing a video all about Shanks. Really an introduction to Shanks and the new profile that's been going around a little bit in the eastern side, and a quick look for you guys to prepare yourself for OP09. As the usual, use the timestamps down below. Today, this video is going to be about a deck list, but I'm actually going to read you a lot more cards than just a normal deck list. I want to give you some guidance of your general thing with this deck, and one thing I really like about this deck, a lot of experienced players that don't have a lot of time to learn about the current meta can actually play this deck and rely on it. Every set I have a little bit of a goal, and it's actually to help my brother. My brother doesn't have a lot of time, maybe 2 tournaments a month, and with that, not a lot of time to practice the meta. And this current deck I've kind of put him together with is a Nell, and he actually performs really well on a Nell, even not min-maxing certain parts and also making mistakes. And coming OP09, I'm going to have him switch off of Nell and onto Shanks, and I'll let you guys know more about that going forward. But before I jump into the profile, I do put a lot of work into these videos through the long editing. If you guys could leave a like and a sub, I would really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the goop. Red Hair Shanks. Honestly, I don't know why I'm not the most excited about this deck, because that's kind of its attribute, is that it's actually just good in general. We're going to go over the full deck list, but I want to give a little bit of preamble to Red in general. In the past, you guys have known Red to be this very aggressive deck, rush-based, has not a lot of options for defense, but it's kind of mixed. It has some of the best events in the game where you do have that defense by using Dawn. It does have interesting removal and aggression, and actually I think Red's best attribute, it has some of the best top end cards that essentially you play it and you have a big rushing body, or it can also remove big bodies. And the Red's main problem is it kind of struggles in the mid game and can lose tempo because it doesn't get a lot of value like certain colors such as blue or black. But with all that, we're going to rely on a leader skill now, which is Shanks himself. Once per turn, you can activate his ability. When your opponent attacks, you give one of your opponent's leaders or characters -1k. So essentially almost saves you a card or forces your opponent to swing at you for 6k, and you reduce it to 5 on early turns, essentially kind of weakening your opponent every single turn. This will allow you to have enough breathing room in your life to play out giant cards, which we'll go over soon. Alright, so here is the full entire deck list. I would love you guys to go along with me while I read these. If you're looking to get that, go ahead and scan this QR code right here, and you can get the cards pulled up at the same time. You can see some special cards here. Most things are 4 ofs. There's a couple 2 ofs and such. And we're going to go over each card one by one. We already went over the leader. And again, just so you know, the goal is to slow down the game so we can play out these big targets while just putting pressure on our opponent swinging. First we have is Otama. It's a 1-cost 0k power, 2000 counter. On play, give up to one of your opponent's characters -2k power during the turn. We also have Moda. So 1-cost, 0k power, and that's 2000 counter. And it does have an on-play skill, is on your turn, when you play this, you can give up to one of your aces 2k power for the turn. Sanji. He's a 2-cost, 3k power with 2000 counter. It's already 3. We have 18 to go, guys. As a Sanji character, you can activate main, you can take a life card, and this character gains 2k power. Then you can give that character 2 rested dawns. So it's very aggressive, especially in the late game or in matchups you think you need to be even more aggressive, but most of the time it's a 2k counter. Next we have is Hongo. He is a 3 cost, 3k power with 2k counter, and he has the effect of activate main. You may rest this character. If your leader has the red hair pirates type, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 2000 power during the turn. On demand Otama. Next we have is Limejuice. 3 cost, 3k, 2k counter. On play, up to one of your opponent's characters with the power of 4000 or less cannot activate blocker the rest of the turn. Note that it doesn't say original power, so you can minus something and then play this. Next, we have a Silver's Rayleigh. He's a 5 cost, 6k power with 1k counter. He is have a blocker attribute, and it's an on play. If your opponent has 2 or more characters with an original power of 5k or more, draw 2, discard 1 from your hand. It's pretty tough because most of the time your opponent's probably going to have that. It just means you can't really get it out on curve sometimes, but we'll see how that goes. Next we have is Portgas.D.Ace. He's from the trial deck, ST15. It's 5 cost, 6k power with 1000 counter. We ignore the first stat, which if your leader's a Whitebeard Pirates, this gets rush. Your leader's not a Whitebeard Pirates. But it has once per turn. If this character would be removed from play by one of your opponent's effects, instead you may give that character -2 instead. Give itself -2. It effectively makes it so that you get to stay on the board for at least 1 turn. Benn.Beckman. He's 7 cost, 7k power with 1000 counter. On play, trash up to one of your opponent's characters with the power of 6000 or less. And the key word here is it trashes a card. Monkey.D.Dragon. He's an 8 cost, 9000 power, and he has rush, so he can attack the turn he's played. On play, you give your leader or a character up to 2 rested dawn. He is from OP07, so hopefully you guys can get your hands on those. Silver's Rayleigh. He's a secret rare from OP08. He's an 8 cost, 8000 power. And on play, you choose up to 2 of your opponent's characters. Until the end of your opponent's turn, it gives one of the characters -3 and the other one -2. After that, you get to KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a power of 3000 or less. So it has a lot of control while being a big body. Next, the new card, OP09 Shanks. 10 cost, 12k power. All of your opponent's characters have -1000 power. And it has rush, so this card can attack the turn in which it is played. It's actually a defensive card, even though it's also offensive. Gol.D.Roger, the first of its kind, a 10 cost, 13k power. This character has rush. This card can attack on the turn in which it is played. And when your opponent activates blocker, if you or your opponent are at 0 life, you win the game. This is going to be a staple in most red decks. At least 1 or 2. Just the threat of Gol.D.Roger winning you the game off of your opponent blocking is pretty incredibly pressuring. Radical Beam from OP01. It is a 1 cost event, and on counter, your leader or one of your characters gains 2k power during the battle. Then, if you have 2 or less life, this card gains an additional 2000 power. It also has a trigger of up to one of your leaders or characters gets 1k power during the turn. And the last card in the main deck is actually Gum Gum Fire Fist Pistol Red Hawk. And that is a 2 cost event. It has a counter ability. Your leader or one of your characters gains 4k power during the battle. Then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 4,000 power or less. It also has a trigger. Give up to one of your opponent's characters or leaders minus 10,000 power during the turn. So it essentially negates a whole attack. That's the main deck list. I'm going to go over some optional cards, which I've seen people play. Number 1 is Uta. It is a film card, and on play, you can look at the top 5 cards of the deck, and you reveal one red hair Shanks card. Then you put the rest at the bottom. Actually impactful for having a body on the field. Lucky Roo. It's a 4-cost, 5k power. It does have 1,000 counter, and he's a blocker. But his ability is on KO. If your leader has the red hair pirates type, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with an original power of 6,000 or less. So it's actually very defensive because it KOs cards while dying. And then finally, Marco. People were playing this alongside Ace, so they have a good mid-game play that doesn't just get immediately removed. And Marco is a 5-cost 6k power with 1,000 counter. On your turn, on play, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 3,000 power or less. And if this character would be KO'd, you can trash an event card from your hand, and you get to play that card back out as rested. So it's pretty sticky. And that's essentially it for the deck profile, guys. Here's the full list again. I think this is a very defensive deck where actually it just lets you get to your 10-drop turns. That's the whole goal. You actually don't need to grind out your opponent with value because you don't get a whole lot of value out of red. You're getting the value out of the leader just enough to play out your big targets and put your opponent on a real clock by starting to play 10-drop Shanks and Gol.D.Roger. But I want you guys to test this out. Let me know in the future how it does for you. And make sure you guys like the video if you're liking it. Subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you all in the next video. Ciao.